Previously on I Couldn't Walk Away. Joyce Ivory Cole didn't come to Seoul to save anyone. She came with a suitcase, a job lead, and a promise to mind her own business. But one wrong taxi drop-off led her to a bridge at night, and to a man who'd already decided he was done. Up on the railing stood Kang Do-hyun, chaebol heir with nothing left he wanted to inherit. One slip, one heartbeat, and he would have disappeared into the dark. Instead, Joyce ran. She grabbed his arm, screamed at a stranger to live, and in the chaos of rain and metal and panic, he hit the ground instead of the water. Sirens, flashing lights, a hospital corridor that smelled like bleach and endings. They called him critical. They called it a coma. They called Joyce his girlfriend because she wouldn't stop shaking long enough to explain she wasn't. She could have walked away. Instead, she stood at the glass, watching a man she didn't know fight for a life he didn't seem to want, and whispered a promise she never meant to make out loud. God, if you let him live, I won't walk away. The defibrillator rose. The shock hit his chest, and the screen went flat. Welcome to I Couldn't Walk Away. The story of a Black woman who talked to a stranger in a coma. This is a story you won't forget for a long time. Episode 2, The Woman Who Stayed. Morning came with no windows. Joyce woke to the sound of a vending machine coughing out a can somewhere down the hall and the stiff ache of having slept in a hospital chair. The fluorescent lights overhead hummed. Her neck protested as she straightened. For a heartbeat, she didn't remember where she was. Then the images crashed back. Metal railings, wet pavement, the weight of an unconscious stranger in her hands, the shrill, unbroken tone of a flat line. She sat up so fast the blanket someone had thrown over her slid to the floor. The crash cart scene replayed frame by frame in her mind. The nurse pushing her back, the door closing, the muffled shout, "Clear!" Her fingers were still curled, as if around invisible fabric. She forced them to uncurl, breathing in through her nose, out through her mouth. Okay, find out. Then you can fall apart. Her phone lay on the plastic chair beside her, plugged into a wall outlet with the charger she dug out of her backpack sometime after midnight. The screen blinked to life when she touched it. 23% battery. A cluster of messages she ignored for now. She pushed herself to her feet and scanned the corridor. The nurse from last night, furrowed brow, kind eyes, was standing at the nurse's station, tapping something into a computer. When she saw Joyce, her expression shifted into a mixture of surprise and respect. "You are still here," the nurse said. Joyce swallowed. "Is he?" The nurse's mouth softened. "He is alive," she said. "We got his heart back." She gestured toward the glass-walled room. "But he did not wake. The doctor will speak more, but he is in deep coma." Alive. The word hit with almost as much force as the flatline had. Joyce exhaled, knees wobbling with relief and fear at the same time. "Is that good? I mean, obviously it's better than—" She flapped a hand helplessly. The nurse's eyes gentled. "It is better than the other thing," she said. "But there are risks. Swelling in the brain. We do scans. We wait. We watch." She sighed. "Sometimes patients wake up quickly, sometimes slowly, sometimes—" Her shoulders lifted, then fell. "They do not." It wasn't the assurance Joyce wanted, but at least it wasn't a death sentence. "Can I—" Her voice rasped. She cleared her throat. "Can I see him? Just for a minute?" The nurse glanced down the hall toward the doctor's office, then back. "Family will come soon," she said. "For now, short time." Her mouth tipped in the suggestion of a smile. "You were brave last night." Joyce didn't feel brave. She felt like a woman who might throw up. Still, she nodded and moved toward the room. Inside, Everything was quieter than she remembered. The machine still beeped, but at a calmer rhythm. Tubes ran from his arm to bags of clear fluid. A ventilator wasn't necessary. He was breathing on his own. That was something. He looked less like a stranger and more like a man who had once had a normal life. The harsh, overhead lights had been dimmed. Someone had smoothed the bandages at his temple and wiped away the last traces of blood. Joyce wrapped her arms around herself and stopped at the foot of the bed. "You're really committed to this drama thing, huh?" she whispered. Her voice wobbled. "First night in Seoul, and you almost died on me twice." He didn't move, not even a flutter of an eyelid. She stepped closer, the soles of her boots soft against the polished floor. At the side of the bed, she rested her fingers lightly on the metal rail, not quite touching him, but close enough to see the tiny rise and fall of his chest. "I don't know your name," she murmured. "I don't know why you were up on that rail, but I do know I missed a whole networking event for you and probably ruined my one chance at a decent job, so you owe me at least some effort." A humorless huff slipped out of her as she said it. Truth was, the job wasn't what hurt. It was the thought that she might have caused this, if she hadn't shouted, if she'd approached slower, if she'd... She cut the thought off before it could spiral. The door opened behind her. "Miss Cole?" The doctor from the night before stepped in, reading off a chart. When he looked up, his expression was tired but not hopeless. "Thank you for staying." "How is he really?" she asked. She didn't have energy for cushioned phrases anymore. "You said coma last night. The nurse said swelling. What does that mean in real-life words?" "In real life," the doctor said, "it means his brain is resting, but also injured. The scans show trauma and swelling, but no catastrophic bleed. We have him on medications to manage pressure. There is no way to know how much function he will have until he wakes." "If he wakes," Joyce said quietly. The doctor didn't flinch at her bluntness. "If he wakes," he agreed, "he might wake exactly as he was before. He might wake with some difficulties, speech, memory, movement, or he might not wake at all." Her stomach dipped. "We usually advise family to speak to the patient," he added, a little gentler. "There are studies that suggest familiar voices can encourage the brain." Joyce looked down at the man in the bed, then back at the doctor. "I'm not family. His family will be here." The doctor's jaw clenched briefly, as if that was a complication in itself. Until then, he is a human with no one else talking to him. Sometimes that is enough. She hesitated. The urge to flee warred with something heavier. "I have to call someone," she said at last. I'll be back, maybe." The doctor nodded. "We will be here." It wasn't supposed to be her problem, she told herself as she slipped out of the room. She had a life to set up, rent to pay, an inbox full of unread emails waiting to remind her she was already behind. And yet, as she walked back down the hall, she felt his stillness like a weight hooked into the back of her ribs. The call connected on the second try. "Girl, do you have any idea what time it is?" Olivia's voice filled the tiny outdoor smoking area like she was standing right there instead of on a completely different continent. Joyce leaned against the cold concrete wall and slid down until she was sitting on the step, her knees pulled up. The hospital's side door was a few meters away. A brisk breeze carried in the smell of rain, cigarettes, and faintly antiseptic air. I don't know," Joyce admitted. "Afternoon, night, time is fake." "Oh, we're in that kind of mood," Olivia yawned. "Last I checked, you were supposed to text me from some fancy Korean event with free pastries and cautious optimism, not from a void." Joyce stared at the scuffed toes of her boots. "Yeah, about that." There was a pause. "You didn't go, did you?" Olivia's tone sharpened immediately. "Joy, don't tell me you got scared and bailed. this was your shot. I went, Joyce said. Kind of. The taxi driver dropped me near the Han River and swore I could walk the rest of the way, and then I saw this guy on the bridge, and she hadn't planned to say all of it, but once she started, the whole story poured out in disjointed bursts. The climbing, the shouting, the slip, the crack of skull on metal, the blood, the ambulance, the flatline, the coma. When she finished, Olivia was silent. So was the night. The hospital's hum felt far away here, replaced by distant traffic and the occasional click of the side door. Liv, Joyce prompted. You risked your career for a man you don't know, Olivia said finally incredulous. On your first night? In a foreign country? With no backup plan? Joyce winced. When you put it like that, how else am I supposed to put it? Olivia demanded. You prayed for this door for months. You fasted, you journaled, you stalked job sites like your life depended on it. And now you might have blown it because you had to go full superhero on a stranger? He was going to jump, Joyce said quietly but firmly. I couldn't just walk by. There were other people there, right? Olivia pressed. Joggers? Locals? You're the one with the most to lose. Why is it always you who throws yourself on the grenade? The words landed harder than Joyce wanted to admit, because they weren't wrong. Not entirely. Back home, she'd been the friend who stayed up on FaceTime all night with a crying roommate, even when she had an exam the next day. The one who took on extra shifts at work when someone else needed the night off. The one who let her ex-boyfriend drain her bank account and emotional reserves until she was the one left overdrawn. But this hadn't been the same. She pictured the man's face again, the emptiness in his eyes, the way his body had felt in her arms when she was trying to keep his blood from leaving his head. If God put someone in front of me who wants to die, she said slowly, I can't just walk away, Liv. Silence again. This time, softer. You really think that was him? Olivia asked eventually. Not just you being you? I prayed on that plane, Joyce said. I told him I was scared, that I felt behind, that watching everybody else hit their milestones made me feel like maybe his story skipped me. And then I land here, and the first person I meet is trying to end their story on a bridge. Her throat tightened. I don't know what that means, but I know I was there, and I know God doesn't waste anything. Olivia sighed, long and low. I love you, she muttered, even when you drive me crazy. That's mutual. Did the event people at least text you? Olivia asked. Maybe they'll understand. Sorry I missed the canapes. I was busy preventing a tragic headline. Joyce pulled the phone away to check her messages. The notifications were a mess of time zones and half-loaded subject lines, but one from an unfamiliar Korean number stood out. We were sorry to miss you this evening. If you experienced any difficulty finding the venue, we understand. Please contact us to reschedule a meeting tomorrow or the following day, if convenient. Her chest loosened a fraction. Looks like I get a second chance, she said, if I don't pass out first. Then go home and sleep, Olivia urged. You did enough. You don't have to make this guy your project. I'm not, Joyce paused. Was she? I'm not making him my project. I just feel responsible. And something else. Oh no, Olivia groaned. Do not say you feel called. If you say called, I'm logging off. Joyce laughed, the sound startlingly bright against the heavy night. Relax. I'm too tired to be dramatic. I'll just check on him once more before I figure out where I'm even staying. Text me when you get to wherever that is, Olivia said. Her voice softened. And Joy, I'm proud of you. Not for the job stuff, for not walking away. Thanks, Joyce whispered. She hung up, pocketed her phone, and went back inside. She told herself it would just be once more. One last look to make sure he was still breathing, that the flat line hadn't returned. Then she'd go find the guest house she'd booked, shower off the hospital smell, and try to be a normal person again. The ICU corridor was quieter now. Visiting hours had technically ended, but the nurse at the station gave her a look that said she was pretending not to see Joyce slip back toward his room. Inside, the machines pulsed softly in the dim light. His chest rose and fell with a steady rhythm. The monitor traced each beat in peaks and valleys. Numbers glowed on readouts. He was there, not awake, not gone, somewhere in between. Joyce closed the door halfway behind her, leaving a crack in case someone needed to burst in. She approached the bed with slower steps this time, the initial adrenaline replaced by a heavier, quieter weight. "I'm back," she said, feeling ridiculous as the words left her mouth. "In case you were wondering." He didn't move. Of course he didn't. "This is Joyce, by the way," she added, because it felt unfair that he'd have to haunt her dreams without at least knowing her name. "Joyce Ivory Cole? From Atlanta. Well, technically from Savannah, originally, but that's a whole history lesson you did not sign up for." Maybe the doctor was right about voices. Maybe the brain did need something to hold on to in the dark. Maybe hers would have to do until his real people arrived. She pulled the plastic visitor's chair closer and sat, resting her forearms on her knees. "So," she said quietly, "first impressions of Soul." She started talking, not because she had anything wise to say, but because silence felt too much like surrender. She told him about the taxi ride, about the driver's proud mention of the Han River, about the neon that made the city look like it was permanently on the edge of celebration. She told him about the woman at the airport who had complimented her hair, and about how she'd felt both too old and too young at the boarding gate, watching teenagers with backpacks and 20-somethings in couple outfits line up with ease. She found herself talking about the job she might still have, the art direction work she loved, the small portfolio she spent months polishing between double shifts and late-night editing sessions. And eventually, without planning to, she talked about her ex. "His name was Brandon," she muttered, staring at the sleeping man's face but seeing another. "He liked to say we were building together, while I was the one working extra shifts to pay the rent. You'd think that would have been a red flag. You'd be wrong." The monitor beeped on, unconcerned. "He left with a girl who had less baggage and more savings," she said. "Which, joke's on him, because I'm the one who got a ticket to Seoul." Her voice thinned on the last word. "Anyway," she said, clearing her throat, "that's my tragic backstory. What's yours?" He lay unchanged. His hair, now clean and combed, fell slightly over his forehead. The bandage at his temple peeked from beneath it. His jawline was sharp even in sleep. Without the tension of last night, he looked almost peaceful. "You don't know me," she said softly, leaning forward so he could hear her, if hearing was a thing he could still do. "But I'm asking God to give you a reason to stay. A real one. Not just because a stranger will feel guilty if you don't." He glanced around, then reached into her backpack. Her fingers closed around worn leather. Her Bible. The edges of the pages were feathered and soft from years of flipping. The cover had a faint scratch from when she dropped it in a church parking lot. It was the one thing she'd been sure to pack in her carry-on. She didn't open it right away. She just set it on her lap and traced the spine with her thumb. "I'm not going to preach at you," she muttered, almost more to herself than to him. "That's not what this is. I just don't know how to be in a place like this without talking to him." She bowed her head. "Okay," she whispered, eyes closed. "You heard what the doctor said. We'll see. Well, I've seen enough almost, and not enough to last a lifetime. If you drag me across time zones and currency exchange rates to that bridge, I'm going to need you to show up here too. For him. For whatever mess he's in that made that railing look better than another day." The words didn't come out polished. They rarely did. But they were honest. She sat there for a while longer, listening to the machines. Eventually she stood. "This is the last time," she told him quietly. "I mean it. I have to find my hostel. I have to email the agency. I have to figure out how to order food without accidentally buying a live octopus. You have your fancy doctors and whatever VIP room your family will move you to. You'll be fine." Her hand shook slightly as she reached out. She stopped short of touching his fingers, hovering over them instead. "I don't know why I care this much," she admitted, voice barely above a breath, "but someone won't let me forget you." The confession hung in the air between them. She turned and walked out before she could change her mind. His world was dark, but not silent. In the darkness, there were echoes. They didn't sound like the doctor's. Those voices were clinical, clipped, full of terms that didn't mean anything in this place. They came and went like waves. Pupils reactive, pressure stable, will adjust the dosage, leaving no footprints. His stepmother's voice floated in sometimes too. Sweet as syrup and twice as suffocating. "My poor son. He's always been so weak. I'll take care of everything." He tried not to follow that one. Every time he did, the dark pressed in tighter. But there was another voice now, one that cut through all the others. He didn't know when it began. Maybe it had always been there, buried under the drug haze and migraine static. Maybe it started on the bridge, or in the ambulance, or in the moment the world jolted with electricity and snapped him loose from the edge. It was warm. It laughed sometimes as it talked about kimchi and neon signs and a taxi driver who thought 5 minutes meant a whole treadmill workout. It trembled when it said, "You don't get to check out like this." It softened when it said, "You don't know me, but I'm asking God to give you a reason to stay." Sometimes it went quiet, and another presence filled the space, wordless but solid, like someone else had walked into the dark. He tried to see, but there was nothing to see, only the sense of a hand reaching toward him without touching. Then, faintly, the warm voice again. "I don't know why I care this much, but someone won't let me forget you." A different memory surfaced. Someone else saying they cared once, fingers cold and gloved around a teacup, a smile that never reached their eyes. This felt nothing like that. This felt inconvenient, unpolished, real. Imagination, he told himself, his brain, firing off nonsense as it unraveled. But he clung to it anyway, to the cadence, to the odd rhythm of her sentences, to the way the words God and stay lived in the same breath. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her face. But he knew this. When she spoke, the dark didn't feel quite so endless. "Who are you?" he wondered, reaching mentally toward the sound even as his body lay motionless. In the darkness, the question floated up like a bubble toward a surface he couldn't find. "Who are you?" The question rose and faded, swallowed by the thick, unending dark. For a moment, nothing answered. Then, so faint he almost missed it. There was that presence again. Not a voice this time, just a sense of someone refusing to leave. A warmth that pressed against the edges of his nothingness like a stubborn beam of light under a locked door. On the other side of monitors and glass and miles of silence, Joyce Ivory Cole closed her journal with the soft sigh she didn't hear over the machines. "I don't know if you can hear me," she murmured to the man who hadn't moved once since she met him. "But I'll come back one more time, then I'm really done." Her fingers brushed his hand as she turned to go. In the dark, where he had no body and no voice, the question pulsed again, sharper now, reaching for the fading echo of her words. "Who are you?" The darkness held its breath. End of episode 2. The Woman Who Stayed. If this story is touching you so far, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss episode 3 of I Couldn't Walk Away. And if you're still here, thank you for staying with Joyce and Do Hyun.